yesterday, and looking ahead, of course, of the day as we get to start a new day of trading. So you can get ahead with the latest information, both global and regional, as well as domestic equities, markets, and so on and so forth regarding the financial market segments here at the #1 business channel. Now, remember, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa. And with Altex East Africa, you can buy and sell treasury bonds across East Africa under the ZABU initiative. Now, with ZABU, you can dial *292#, and following the prompts, you can be able to register yourself and be able to buy or sell. This applies to both investors who have bonds and those who want to acquire them, and those who as well want to learn more about the products. You can choose, depending on what your interests are, the period you want to invest for, and with as little as 15,000 shillings, you can start your journey of investment. And this money can be picked off of your mobile money. That is the entire initiative for ZABU. The market's opening at 8:15, close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Altex East Africa, doing something new. Well, thank you so much for once again joining us today. My name is Anthony. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sebale, and as well follow Smart24 TV at Smart24 TV. Now let's get to dive right into the business of the day. Here at the Uganda Securities Exchange, the trading seemed to be a little bit slower for the second day of trading, for the first weekly day rather of trading, that is Monday, yesterday. Now, according to data from the Uganda Securities Exchange on the 30th of January, we had close to 1,061,698 shares in total that were traded on the exchange. Now, currently this shows an 800% improvement in the volume, of course, comparing that with Friday tradings, where we had slightly less than 500,000 shares that were traded for the last day of trading on Friday. Currently, the market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange is 20.2 trillion Ugandan shillings. Now, in aggregate, we had 7 participants in the trading amongst the 18 listings on the Uganda Stock Exchange, ending the day with a single gainer, and this was Uganda Clays. And when you look at the losing side, we had close to a number of about 6 cross listings that did lose some value on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, Uganda Clays Limited had about 17.0 Ugandan shillings as their closing price yesterday, with a 13.33% gain in price at the exchange. On the losing side, Nation Media Group lost the biggest amount of value at close to 13.34%, and down to 419.20 Ugandan shillings. The stock registered the worst day of trading for the week, and on the exchange in particular for Monday. Now, Jubilee Holdings Limited as well lost close to 6.54% on their value, down to 5,520.59 Ugandan shillings as well on the market. This was their second day of losing as well on the Uganda Securities Exchange consecutively. Equity Group Holdings as well lost a total of close to 4.85%, down to a price of 1,294.53, whereas East African Breweries Limited lost close to 4.44%, down to 4,795 shillings. Kenya Airways as well further lost value for its stock there at 4.02% decline or depreciation in price, down to 108.85 Ugandan shillings per share. Well, Kenya Airways is getting pretty smaller and smaller in terms of value on the Uganda Securities Exchange. The company last year, on average, was trading at 120 shillings for the entire year, but currently they are counting just about 108.85 Ugandan shillings per share on the exchange. KCB Group likewise lost 3.95%, down to 1,092.75 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, when you look into the Uganda Stock Exchange, we do have other stock listings that do trade on the market, much as they haven't been active. And these include, for example, British American Tobacco. British American Tobacco Uganda trades at 15,000 Ugandan shillings. The company hasn't traded a single share since the year began, and even a couple of months last year did not witness any trading on the company. The company's stock fell last year around this period 50%, down from 30,000 shillings to 15,000 Ugandan shillings. We do have Centum Investments at 247.25 and Cipla Quality Chemical Industries at 60.0 shillings. Cipla was also one of the big movers for the day on Monday with over 13,109 shares. And DFCU Bank currently is also one of the listings, trading at 542.0 Ugandan shillings, and East African Breweries Limited at 4,795. And now when you look at also MTN Uganda, they traded just 50 shares yesterday, but the current price of the company is at 180.0 Ugandan shillings per share. And National Insurance Corporation has the least price on the market with just about 5.0 Ugandan shillings per share on the exchange. New Vision Printing and Publishing Company, fortunately as well yesterday, came back with a participation of over 400 shares, closing the day at 150.0 Ugandan shillings. This company now lost also 5 shillings on the Monday trading. Chumi Supermarket hasn't traded and is actually not currently trading on the exchange. Uganda Clays Limited traded a total of over 50,000 shillings at 17.0 Ugandan shillings closing price. This was an appreciation of 2 shillings from the former price of 15.0 Ugandan shillings up to 17.0 shillings. Umeme Limited also traded the biggest volume for the day at over 690,000 shares that were traded. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of the year, Umeme is going to have a very great year in my own perspective, but also evident from the current performance of the stock. There has been a lot of attention that has been drawn to Umeme currently on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and this is actually becoming more and more contagious, because as later on we are going to look into the Nairobi Securities Exchange trading, there has been also similar activity that has been registered on the Nairobi Securities Exchange as well, in as far as trading on the Uganda supplier of electricity is concerned, that is Umeme. Now, the company announced last year at the beginning of the month of December that they will not be renewing their 20-year concession period or agreement which they had with the government of Uganda to supply, to head the supply of electricity in Uganda, supply and distribution of electricity in Uganda. Now, the company started operations in the month of March 2005 and signed a concession agreement of 20 years with the government of Uganda to supply and distribute electricity in Uganda. Now, this period will be expiring in 2025 on the 31st of March. That definitely means that the company will not exist anymore past March 2025. So a lot of shareholders are seeing this as an opportunity to get into the trading here on the Uganda Securities Exchange on a company that is promising a very good share to be given to shareholders as they depart from the Uganda Stock Exchange business, but also the Uganda electricity distribution business as a general business. Now, Umeme currently recorded the biggest shares on Monday at 690,561 shares. Consequently, the company is becoming more and more valuable for the shareholders there, much as, of course, the 300 shillings has stuck for quite some days now, about a week or so, but a few days ago, the company was trading at 210 shillings. And in just a couple of weeks, that has risen by over 50% to 300 shillings. Now, when you look at currently the gross turnover, they have some of the biggest turnovers on the market. And last year alone, when you look at the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter results from the Capital Markets Authority bulletin, you realize that the company, Umeme, had a fair big volume and turnover for all the quarters, coming on top of the movers, and as well coming on top of the biggest companies with the biggest turnover on the market. Now, the shares outstanding in this company are currently 1.62 billion out there, and these are valued at 487 billion. That is taking in consideration the price of 300 shillings per share. MTN also did move the market on Monday, and currently when you look at the statistics here, Stanbic Bank Uganda came in the second place at 298,676, and Uganda plays in the third place at 50,000, and then Cipla Quality Chemical Industries at 13,109, and MTN only had 50 shares for the show on Monday tradings. However, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries also had a good day, particularly speaking about the only pharmaceutical industry on the company, on the stock exchange. And currently the stock has a value of 60 shares per share, on 60 shillings per share on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and a total value of 219 billion Ugandan shillings that are floated on the exchange. Currently, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries has about 1.08% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equities market. These 13,000 shares yielded a total turnover of close to 786,540 shares, 40 Ugandan shillings that was traded on the market. Currently, when you look at the trading of Cipla has about, so far in the last 3 months, about 567,000 shares that have been recorded on the exchange in this period, and a total value of close to 35.6 million Ugandan shillings that has also been traded on the company in the last 3 years. Remember, last year was the first time Cipla registered a profit since listing on the exchange in 2018. We hope this year we'll have a similar story. There's been a lot of course, demand from the shareholders on the value of the company that is adding to the shareholders, and last year it did them justice by, of course, giving every shareholders at least 1.5 shillings for every single share they held with the company. Now, moving away from Cipla Quality Chemical Industries down to the other movers, we did have MTN at 50 shillings. MTN closed at 180 shillings, so nothing pretty much changed for the stock there on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And the trading data, like I mentioned, showed an improvement of 800% in volume, but turnover slightly also remained stagnant on the Uganda Stock Exchange, not changing very much because of course, the smaller volume that was registered on Uganda Clays was the only mover for the day. Now, when you look at the indices here on the benchmark index, moved upwards, whereas when you look at the all share index, it also moved up at 0.54 points, which was a 0.04% gain on the market. Let's get across over to the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, the Nairobi Securities Exchange is currently the biggest stock exchange in East Africa, and when you look at the current figures, this company has the biggest traders in volume, but also when you look at their market capitalization, which is close to 1.95 trillion, of course slightly declining from last week, but still on the list of the biggest, one of the biggest market capitalization on the continent. Now, on Monday, we had 48 listings that participated in trading, and the day ended with 15 gainers and 21 top movers. Captura Tea Company led the gainers with a total of close to 9.09% share price appreciation. That closed at exactly 120.0 Kenyan shillings per share. Williamson Tea Kenya as well recorded an increase of 8.86%, and Wumeme recorded a gain of 7.66%. The HF Group, or Home Africa Group, also had about 3.96% share price appreciation. On the losing side, Longhorn Publishers continued to perform poorly on the exchange after it came out last with an end of day price depreciation of 6.77% on the exchange at exactly 3.03 trading Kenyan shillings per share. And when you look at East African cables, they also lost 5% of their value, and Liberty Kenya Holdings at 3.12%. The Scan Group company as well lost 3.01%. Cooperative Bank of Kenya this time around came on top of the gainers, on top of the movers list, with a total movement of 2.23 million shares that were traded, and Safaricom coming at 847,500. This is a big move for Cooperative Bank of Kenya, coming ahead of Safaricom, but not just going ahead, but by a very big margin. You can imagine from 2.23 million shares, and Safaricom at exactly about 800 shares. So that's a very great performance for the Cooperative Bank of Kenya on the exchange in Kenya as well. Kenya Power and Lighting Company had about 800,500 shares that were recorded, and Ken General as well had 576,900 shares that were recorded as well on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Regarding the performance of the benchmark index, the NSEO share index shed off 0.53 points and closed at exactly 125.54 points, whereas the other remarkable indices like the NSE20 and the NSE25 shed off 0.49% and 0.31% respectively. That's the trading from the Nairobi Stock Exchange, but also a big story you should be following up on is, of course, new conditions that the Nairobi Securities Exchange is putting in place in order to, of course, get to join the East African Capital Markets project that has been spearheaded by the African Development Bank. Now, the initiative or the project seeks to have a one-stop center for all your capital markets services on the East African region. When you look at current conditions of trading, they do not favor regional trading because there are costs of trading across borders. There are different hurdles that you have to overcome to be able to trade. For example, Nairobi Stock Exchange and stockbrokers have different licenses and so on. But that, of course, on top of that, there has been a lot of demand from the East African market to have a one common capital market for the entire East Africa. Well, the African Development Bank has put conditions which the current, under the current conditions, it will not unroll this project until the Nairobi Securities Exchange actually gets to conform and gets to agree to be one of the major participants in this market. And that, of course, is putting a little bit of a tight knot on the progress of the project because Kenya says there's still a lot more lacking that in terms of infrastructure to put in place this market. And it's demanding for a software that will ease trading, which probably hasn't been put in place as well. So follow up on that story and more. As a very passionate investor, I am very interested in the integration of our capital markets. Okay, now that's of course the trading for you from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Elsewhere in Africa, things were not so different. Basically having the trading a little bit sluggish this week, starting off the week this time round. Now getting over to the international stocks news and updates. The stock market in the United States fell ahead of the blockbuster week. Of course, in this week we expect a lot on the United States capital markets scene, but looking at the performance currently of the US stock futures, there's been a little bit of decline. Now, stocks in the US ahead of the open Monday as investors fell ahead of the open Monday as investors await the blockbuster week, including of course, which includes the latest Fed meeting that's going to be starting today, and a flurry of heavyweight earnings reports and jobs data. Now, futures tied to the S&P 500 were down by 1%, while the futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost close to 0.7%. Now, the contracts of the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite declined by roughly 1.3%. The yields on the benchmark 10-year Treasury note ticked up by 3.57, actually to 3.557 on Monday morning, and the dollar index was down 0.08% to $101 US. That's the trading, my friend, from the different parts of the world. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Smart24TV, and also follow Smart24 at follow me personally at Anthony Sebale. And you can of course get the latest on business every morning, every evening, every afternoon, every single day of the week, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and get to get ahead in your world of business. My name is Anthony. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. But remember to check out Altex East Africa. With Altex, you can buy treasury bonds at the easiest, in the easiest steps, with just a dial of *292#, and getting across, of course, East Africa to buy treasury bonds at the biggest rates on the secondary market. Now, of course, these will vary in maturity depending on your taste and preference as an investor, but the ease here on the market is, of course, the convenience of getting money off of your mobile phone onto the exchange, and this can be as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. The markets at Altex open at 8 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. and Altex East Africa tells you you can do something new. There you have it, my friend. I'll catch you next time, same place, same time. Bye for now.